And we are live. Welcome back to another great episode of the
Let's
Mecca Banter
go.
podcast. Mecca Moments Part 2. I am today's host, Henry Wind. You can find me on Twitter at Henry Wind. And I'll just get it out of the way early. It's a great week to be a Manchester United fan. We are
Always, always.
coming off of the Arsenal collapse today against Manchester City. But we're not here to talk about Arsenal. We're here to talk about Manchester United. So, Connor Sindobri, welcome to the pod. And how are you feeling today?
What's going on, buddy? I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to have kind of a pod strictly focused on United. I always feel like there's always more to say when we do a typical episode, and we kind of just have to cut ourselves off a little bit, just to keep the pod moving. So excited to really dive into United here and get into the nitty gritty.
It is funny. I think I toe the line all the time of like knowing that we're the only club that has two people on the pod. So
I
it's like
know
it's easy to like gang up on
we
it.
don't want to go over the top too. It's like we
But
both have the same
also we're
thoughts.
super excited right now. So like this is our time where we
We're
can
stuck
really
toeing
talk
the
about it.
line.
We have a great episode today. We're really just going to dive into a couple of things. And the first thing is the United versus Barcelona game that is on Thursday in the Europa League this week. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the potential sale of Manchester United. And finally, give a thought on where we currently stand in the league, as well as what our expectations are for the rest of the season. So stick around. We have a great pod for you today. And we're going to kick off with the Barcelona United game. It is Thursday this week, February 7th or 16th. That's tomorrow, February 16th at the Camp Nou. It'll be a big game. When you see Barcelona and Manchester United, you certainly don't expect to see that matchup in the Europa League, and certainly this far back in the Europa League. But here we are, a huge game. What are your thoughts leading into it?
Um, First off, super excited for this one. I think, I listened to Eric Ten Hag's press conference today, and he was very complimentary not only of Barcelona, but of Xavi and kind of where the Barcelona team is at. And there's so many parallels between Barcelona right now and United. He also sort of commented on how both teams are definitely in the wrong competition, not where they want to be, but also complimentary of the fact that we're progressing, they're progressing. Over the last couple of years, they haven't played necessarily great football. Neither have we. So it's two teams that are definitely on the rise. And I think no matter the competition, obviously we don't want to be in the Europa League, but no matter the competition, when you see United Barcelona on the fixture sheet, you know that it's a big time game. And arguably at the moment, these are two of the most informed teams in the world. So going into it, it's very tough to sort of gauge like a score line, in my opinion. I mean, obviously, if we sort of want to break down the lineups a little bit, like we're without Martinez tomorrow, Sabitzer tomorrow, no Anthony, no McTominay. But at the same time, Casemiro's back in the team, which I think will be massive with his experience of having played at the Camp Nou, having played against Barcelona, been a rival of Barcelona. And you also have like Varane, who has thrived in this rivalry over the past decade. So the combination of those two guys, and sort of the lineup that I think we're going to bring out, it's kind of hard to predict. This is like the most confident I think I can be going into this game, that I think I've been in in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. You mentioned that, two of the most informed teams. True, very true. If you look at the last 15 games in all competitions, there's one loss, for United and zero losses for Barcelona over the last 15 games. And so if you combine that 30 games played over the last couple of weeks and one loss between the two of them, that's pretty incredible. And it doesn't really matter what kind of competition you're in. It's going to be massive. The lineups is where it gets pretty interesting. Obviously United are without the players that you just mentioned. Barcelona are without a couple of guys as well, Dembele and Busquets, which are two mainstays in the team this year. It creates some interesting matchups across both halves. So where Barcelona excels and always has excelled when they're at their best is in the midfield. They love to pass. They play the tiki-taka between Kessie, De Jong, Gavi, Pedri. They're going to be holding onto the ball a lot. And then I think truthfully, I think the most underrated center back in the entire world is Ronald Araujo from
Has to be.
Barcelona. He's
Has to
23.
be.
He is he is so good. Last year, before he signed his new contract with Barcelona, there was actually a lot of talk about him coming to Manchester United. And I don't know if you remember, but I was on that train heavily. I think that he is fantastic. But what gives me a lot of excitement is where I think that Barcelona is the weakest is actually out on the wing backs. And it doesn't really matter who you put in there. They've played Koundé outright. They've played Araujo outright. They've played Jordi Alba out left. They've played Balde out left. They've played Marcus Alonso out left. Anytime those wing backs, are out there, I think that's where they leak goals. And oddly enough, it's not like Barcelona's conceded a lot of goals. I
It's
don't have the
seven
stat
goals.
pulled up
It's
right
seven
now,
goals total in La Liga this year.
which is disgusting. That
Yeah,
that is a gross statistic. But at the same time, when you look at the caliber of teams in La Liga versus the Premier League, and it's not just to say that Manchester United is going to win this game because we play in the Premier League. That's not what I'm saying at all. But going up against the competition, Barcelona is able to get away with a little bit more than United is.
of
They
course.
also have Ter Stegen in net, who is disgusting as well. So all that confidence and pros for Barcelona. I think that you hit it spot on with Manchester United. I think that we have a really strong lineup. I would put our spine up against their spine, even if Luke
Of
Shaw is
course.
going to play that left center back. I would absolutely put ours up against theirs. I think if we go to the Camp Nou, get a result of a win or a tie, I think that is great for going back to Old Trafford. I don't love the idea of losing ever, and I certainly don't love the idea of starting off this first leg with a loss, but I think going with a win or a tie is what we're looking at.
I think it's so interesting because in the United team and the way we're playing right now, there's almost no excuses no matter who's in the team. And I think that's because the fans, we've all grown to just trust Eric Ten Hag in what he's doing. So I'm curious your thoughts on if you think he'll go with like Delo or Wan-Bissaka. Obviously, Delo started at the weekend, which to me sort of makes me think he's going to lean Wan-Bissaka in this game. Which with the form that he's been in over the past month and a half, I'm completely okay with that. I do agree with you that what makes most logical sense, what we've seen Ten Hag do over the past a couple of weeks when Martinez has been out, is slide Luke Shaw in, and we know that he can
Mhm.
play that position, and we know that he can do it well. Obviously, probably that means Malacia on the right, Cassie holding, of course. I'm so excited finally to see him back playing football after a week and a half of him being out. Probably Fred, Cassie. I think sort of if they do decide, if Barca decides to play Koundé on the right side, I think Rashford can have an absolute field day with
Yeah,
him.
same.
And we know how Barcelona likes to play. They like to play that tiki taka style of ball, keeping the ball. And United, truthfully, we always sort of match up well when we do play against those teams because it always takes that Bruno hitting Rashford in behind one time, or Cassie finding that ball over the top one time. So we're deadly on the counter when we get the opportunity to. Obviously, Woot will probably be through the middle, and I'm curious to who you think is going to go off right because
Mm.
we started Sancho at the weekend. I could see Sancho, but again, he's still sort of coming back into form. Throwing him back into Camp Nou may sort of be definitely a test for him and where he's at. I don't think that means that it won't happen. But then again, we don't really have another option to sort of slide in there. Obviously,
Mhm.
Garnacho is great off the left. Rashford isn't as effective on the right side. So I think our lineup is kind of not set in stone, but I think it's very predictable. But I think that doesn't necessarily matter in terms of how Barcelona or how we set up. I think that on paper, these two teams line up to be, one of the best fixtures in Europe all year,
Yeah, I to be honest with you, I think that Sancho has that right wing position locked in right now with Antony not in the lineup.
especially with him out.
I, like Ten Hag, however, has done some things this year. Remember the first game that Luke Shaw played center back, and we're like, "What the fuck is
Yeah.
going on?" But like in Ten Hag, we trust. So I think that right now, he'll play Sancho out there, and I'm actually going to lean Wan-Bissaka.
So am I.
And the
Truthfully,
only
100% am.
yeah, the only reason why I say that is defense first. I think in an away fixture in this big of a game, I think defense first is where it's going to be. We know that like Malacia will get forward because Rashford gets forward. So there's so much space in behind to like overlap or even invert onto the inside. And we saw over the weekend Malacia doing a little bit of what Zinchenko did and like drifting
It's
to the
like
middle. We
slide
saw
in the
that.
middle. Yeah.
Yeah, and and the same argument could be made for Delo doing it, just obviously on the opposite side of the field. I just think that Wan-Bissaka is going to get the nod, and I wouldn't be surprised if Delo got the nod back at Old Trafford. I just think
Yeah.
that it's going to be two different things. But what's great, man, is like for the first time in a really long time, I look at a proposed lineup with Delo in it, and I'm like, fuck yeah. And I look at a proposed lineup with Wan-Bissaka, and I'm like, fuck yeah. Like
Yeah.
I just think that they
It's a
bring
good
two
problem to
different
have.
things. Yeah, two different things. I also look at, Luke Shaw, like a more ball playing center back. Obviously he's used to progressing the ball, and it might be okay that Wan-Bissaka is a little bit more limited on the ball, and you may not need three ball carriers in your back four.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason why I give the nod there. But I don't think Garnacho will start. I can't imagine that he
No,
will.
it's
So I think
too
our
big
lineup,
of a
like you said,
moment.
is
Yeah, too big of a moment for an 18-year-old.
yeah,
Not to say he
and
won't come on to like affect the game, but from the start, I think that's one of those where
yeah.
you ease him into this for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about Ten Hag's press conference and Xavi's press conference, yesterday. He was talking about how Rashford is the most dangerous and exciting player in Europe right now. Like
Yeah.
he's just the most informed. On the last pod, you said he was the best player in the world at the current moment, which is I'm fine with that take. That's
Yeah.
great. So it's like to me, it wouldn't make any sense to remove Rashford from that position on the left where he is so
Yeah.
dangerous. But later in the game, bro, put him back at the 9, let Garnacho
Of
cook,
course.
and put, Weghorst at the 10. Solid, solid.
I'm very interested to see no matter who it is. I will say that since Delo has been back, he hasn't looked like that like pre-World Cup Delo that was arguably one of the best right backs in the league. Yes, he's coming back from injury. He's played 2 games. And he's still trying to find his form, but that also is why I think you just in this moment like go with Wan-Bissaka. He's been working. You know what
Mm-hmm.
you're going to get from him. Plus, like if you look at the lineup, I'm looking at the lineup that Barca played out the weekend against Villarreal, where like Gavi sort of plays that like out left. Like I
Mm-hmm.
think that matchup of Varane and and Wan-Bissaka over there, like that right hand side could be locked down because you know how much Gavi
Yeah.
pinches on the inside. I do think that that's where it gets interesting though, because we know that Delo is better going forward, and Gavi oftentimes does drift on the inside and drifts in sort of like that 10 roll, like 8 roll, to where
Mm-hmm.
that could leave that space out on that right hand side for Delo to exploit. So it'd be very interesting. Like
Yeah.
betting man, I do think we go with Wan-Bissaka, but either or at the moment, like I'm completely fine with considering the fixture congestion we have.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm looking at defensive like stability, and
Yeah,
that's what I would do. If you can eliminate Gavi on the left hand side, force him inside, then you're forcing him straight into Casemiro.
yeah,
I know that Gavi is so fun to watch because he flies into tackles, but I'm taking Casemiro 10 out of 10 times there. And the other thing is that Jordi Alba overlaps every chance
true.
he can.
It's
So
true.
the classic Jordi Alba run is that diagonal ball from the outside in, or the diagonal run from the outside in, excuse me, and playing over the top. And Wan-Bissaka for me has just, tracked that a little bit better. So there's another storyline in this that will be a little bit interesting to watch. And it'd be interesting if we could take like an over or under of mentions during the broadcast. But we chased Frankie de Jong for an entire summer. And Frankie de Jong is a player that has, deep roots with Ten Hag at Ajax. It turned Frankie into one of the best midfielders in the world that year. Won like the young player of the tournament for the Champions League, and obviously got his Mega Million move to Barcelona right after that. So do you think that affects the game at all? Do you think that there's any like mind games, or is it just a media circus that makes it bigger than it is?
I think it's definitely a media circus. I mean, I think if we hadn't been tracking him for so long, this wouldn't even necessarily be that big of a conversation. But like for example, Ten Hag was asked about it in his press conference today. He was
Mm,
asked about his thoughts about Frankie De Jong as a player, and of course he had nothing but high regards, saying that Frankie would walk into any team in the world and make them better no matter who it is, whether that be Barcelona, Manchester United. It's kind of interesting if you watch a press conference, Ten Hag, like he doesn't oftentimes talk about other teams or other players, but I think he just has such that personal relationship with Frankie. I think it was that like if you want to call it like class of 2019 team from Ajax
mhm.
that they have that relationship. So he actually kind of cracked a smile talking about Frankie. And it's interesting because I think if you were to ask Ten Hag, like who's the first name on your team sheet if you could sign anybody, like I still think that that player would be Frankie De Jong. And so I think
Mhm.
we're in for another saga of hearing about him in the summer. But at the same time, he's been an integral part of what Barcelona is doing this year. And you and I
Yeah.
who watch Barcelona a ton just know how important he is to that team, and not only how important, but how well he has been playing. Like
Yeah.
Barca are what 11 points, or like I think that is what they are, clear at the top of the table. I know Madrid played today, but he's happy. He's happy
Yeah.
there. It's continuously come out that he doesn't want to leave. So it kind of is a media circus a little bit around surrounding Frankie De Jong. Certainly at this moment, I do hope that our United midfield can sort of shut him down a little bit because we do know how special of a player he is. But if there's one player that can, or excuse me, one guy that can kind of know how to minimize him, it's got to be Eric Ten Hag, who knows him, knows how he
Yeah.
likes to play, knows how he likes to set up. So it'll be super interesting to see how that works out and just even their interaction, like before, after the game, kind of how they interact with each other. I'm super interested to
Mhm.
see how it goes.
I'm excited to watch him go up against Bruno. I think
Oh, I
Bruno's
love
going to
it.
piss him off a little bit during the game. I
I
think
love
that
it. Yeah.
Bruno being a high pressing, cam, I think that that's going to be just great
I
box office
I
stuff to
I
watch.
love it. The one other thing I kind of want to comment about this game is Luke Shaw was the player that was involved in the press conference today with Eric Ten Hag, and he was asked a question about Casemiro, and of course I'll be paraphrasing here. But he was asked about Casemiro, and his response essentially was that, and this is coming from obviously somebody who's played left back at the majority of the time, but also center back. And he was asked about the effect that Casemiro has on the team, and his response was sort of like he adds us with that stability and calmness, and we feel more safe when he's on the field. He made sort of a joke that he thinks like Casemiro almost loses the ball on purpose just so he can go win it back. And so it's interesting just that the confidence that he brings to our team and how we can play with him versus, as we saw at the weekend, a Sabitzer and Fred, who neither of them are really a six. So just the stability that Cassie's going to bring back into this game tomorrow is, I think, another key storyline. Like that Real Barcelona rivalry, no matter who you play for, if you've been a part of it, it lives forever. Like it lives forever.
Mhm.
Like that Casemiro wants to show up. He's going to put in the same tackles that he did for Madrid in this game. And I really think that he's going to be the key to how we play tomorrow. I think
You think he's going to get carded tomorrow?
I think, yeah, hammer that. Hammer whatever that
Yeah,
is, but
whatever
hammer
the
that.
line is for Casemiro to get a
Hammer that.
card. Hey, take a prediction. What's your scoreline prediction?
Um, I'm confident that we have the ability to go into the Camp Nou, a tough place to play and get a result. So I want to say like 1-1 or 2-1. Because I do think as much as Barcelona having given up that many goals this year, I just don't like La Liga isn't the Premier League. Like I think
Mhm.
that we can cause them problems. We will cause them problems. Between Sancho, Bruno, Weghorst, hopefully he can provide some link up play. And then the most informed striker, or excuse me, I guess a winger technically in the world, Marcus Rashford. I do think we're going to score a goal. And I would be more than
Yeah.
happy coming out of the Camp Nou with a 1-1 result, going back to Old Trafford with 75,000 fans, with Sabitzer, with Martinez, with Anthony back. So I'm happy with a 1-1 or 2-1, of course. But if I was a betting man, I'd probably say 1-1.
Yeah. I almost want to like take a cop out and say double chance United or draw. But here's the deal. Both teams don't score. Like you said, they don't score a ton of goals. I think we're going to hold them to a shutout.
That would be
I think
that would be
we are.
unbelievable.
Um, I think we are. And I have more doubt on will we score a goal. So I actually think it's gonna be like a 0-0 or a 1-0, which is like so boring, obviously, but I'll be
Honestly,
ecstatic if that happens.
even 1-0 Barcelona, like obviously you don't want us to lose. But at the same time, like that doesn't rule like us out by any means. Obviously, it makes our job harder, but us scoring twice at Old Trafford is very much in the cards for what could happen in that second leg.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going 0-0 or a 1-0 win.
I'll,
So we'll
I'll
see.
take
We'll
it.
see how it goes. Obviously, 24 hours from now, we could be in a very different headspace. Listeners, you could be actively laughing at us listening to this after the game if that does not happen. So moving on to a big chunk of conversation for the last month. If you haven't been an active listener to the pod, a little over a month ago, we brought news forward, that we've gotten from everyone else, just that the Glazers, who have owned Manchester United for the last, 12, 15 years, are looking to sell the club. Don't need to go into a huge thing about it. There's actually a video on our YouTube channel of Connor and I reacting to this whenever it happened that day. But the Glazers need to go, and there has been a soft deadline set by the Rain Group, which is the financial institution that's like handling all of the the advisory board to the Glazers of who to sell to and all of that stuff. There's a soft deadline set of Friday of this week, which is February 17th, which could mean something and it could mean nothing. A lot of times these takeovers, these sales happen behind closed doors. People don't really get to know all the inside details. Even Fabrizio doesn't get to know everything. So there's a couple of things that Connor and I are both going to talk about the two most prominent bids, which is the Qatari investment group. And then there's also Sir Jim Ratcliffe. There's also like a couple other fringe names being thrown out there, and I can talk about those too. But there's a couple of things that will kind of inform our summation of them, I guess. There's a couple of things that need to happen right away. Regardless of who takes over the club next, one of the things that needs to happen is Old Trafford needs to get either rebuilt or updated. This has been something that the Glazers have put off for about 10 years now. Old Trafford still is, the theater of dreams. People still have such affection for it, but it is old now. There are things that need to get updated and be brought into this century. They need to sack the back of house staff, the director of football operations, the CEO. They've done a horrendous job.
Richard Arnold, see ya. Murdoch, see ya.
And then update Carrington, which is the training facilities. There was a lot of flack being put Manchester United's way whenever the Ronaldo interview came out before the World Cup about the old way that Carrington has been, and that needs to be a focus as well. So those three things alone are going to be a large amount of money on the front end, regardless of what happens with transfers and things that we really get excited about. Those things need to happen in the back end to bring us into this century. So as we mentioned, the two most prominent names so far have been Sir Jim Ratcliffe and then the Qatari investment group. To give a quick backstory on Sir Jim Ratcliffe, he is I think officially Britain's most wealthy man. If he's not the wealthiest, he's in the top two, and he isn't two, if you know what I'm saying. Estimated net worth of over $20 billion, made his name, several years ago in the chemical industry. His company Ineos, which is still the chemical business, has actually diversified their portfolio over the last 20 or so years to include sporting ventures. Some of those ventures are in the football world. Nice, who's in France, they came into power at France within the last couple of years. They have cycling teams, they have F1 teams. It's a really big focus to diversify their portfolio. The excitement of Sir Jim Ratcliffe amongst the United fans, and certainly between the two of us, is that the Glazers don't care about United. They never have.
At all.
They don't go to the games. They're not fans. They don't do anything like that. Sir Jim Ratcliffe has been a lifelong fan of Manchester United. Very public, lifelong fan of Manchester United. Obviously, these are like very closed doors conversations, but the few comments he's made in the public about Manchester United and the purchase of Manchester United are all things that you would want to hear in a potential owner. Things like, if you're going to do something, you do it all the way. You don't do it halfway. You're all in or you're all out. And that is a breath of fresh air for us United fans. He also, I think this is relevant as well, last year, when Chelsea was up for sale, the Rain Group also handled the Chelsea sale. They were also the advisory board for that sale. And he actually made a bid for Chelsea late in the game, all in cash, which is incredible to hear. Again, if you don't know the story of the Glazers, please go look it up. The Glazers bought the club on debt. they bought the club in a loan basically, and then immediately put the debt onto Manchester United. So no matter what we did domestically, no matter what we did, in Europe, no matter what we did from a business perspective, we were continuously in debt for years and years and years. The fact that this man came in and said, no, I'll give you whatever Chelsea was valued at, 2 billion or 2.5 billion or whatever it is, all in cash. That's crazy. That is a
Insane.
breath of fresh air for us. Now, my worry with Sir Jim Ratcliffe is, does he have the funds to accomplish the three things that I mentioned at the beginning of redoing the back of house staff, Carrington and Old Trafford? I don't doubt that he has the finances to purchase the club. I just don't. I don't doubt that at all. I do doubt if he has the funds to do that in the way that United needs him to do that. And does the money stop with the sale, or are we going to be able to go in the summer, for example, and buy someone like Jude Bellingham? And if we can't get Jude Bellingham, can we spend half of that and get Frankie de Jong, or do we not have the funding for that? If that's the case, is he bringing in a consortium or a group of other investors where he still has the majority, share and vote of it, but then who are these other people, and are they taking dividends out of the club? Like, what's going on with that? So Sir Jim Ratcliffe is certainly up there. There's been a lot of public praise for him amongst United fans, but the one thing that feels like a little asterisk is, does he have the full funds?
It's with him. It's the United fan base is at an extremely like sort of weird point right now to where like we're all backing Ten Hag and the football that's happening on the field, but sort of off the field with this sort of the Glazers wanting to sell. I would say the fan base is almost a little bit divided to where there are those who are sort of in favor of a Sir Jim Ratcliffe who has United's, obviously best interest at heart being a lifelong fan. But then there's also the rumors that if he were to put in a bid for United, like he would also take a loan out, which is exactly what the Glazers have done, So there's sort of that two contradicting things of that's what the Glazers have done. Sir Jim Ratcliffe, lifelong fan, still potentially taking a loan out to help pay for things for United. So that's definitely, I think United fans are sort of scarred a little bit from what the Glazers have done. That I think that whole taking out a loan to potentially make things happen with United is still leaves a salty taste in some United fans' mouth. I think it's extremely interesting to be a United fan right now because the fan base is completely behind the team, but almost divided in half, at least from what I've seen, on who they want to buy the club right now.
Yeah, 100%. And I think being scarred is the perfect way to describe it. You can also be in criticism of like what he's done at Nice, or even the lack of what he's done. Fact of the matter is they're sitting in like 10th place in the French league, which, we all can come on here and banter about how it's a farmers league and, there's that. And yes, he's purchased a couple of English talents there now, like Ross Barkley's there now, like just random English talent, but like it's not like they're splashing the bag to compete with PSG. And would he splash the bag for his boyhood club, Manchester United, the same, with that? And like, I don't know, man. I think that's where it's tough, like the split in half there. It seems like, and I don't want to get ahead of like my evaluation of it, but like, it seems like when you look at the full package of what you would want in an owner, and like those couple of things, like definitely starts with finances, but then you also want like investment in the club. Like you want them to be a fan, but then you also want them to be like an outstanding citizen and like a good human being. It feels like it's really hard to like come by and, also have like a brain. You could probably say like for the first three things, Todd Bowley is knocking that out of the park at Chelsea, but then like, does he have like a brain to like not do what he's doing? I don't know. But like, it's hard to look at, the Sir Jim Ratcliffe thing and have full faith that he's exactly the person that we need at this club. Much like some of the other candidates as well. So I agree with you. Like, I feel very split in half. I think the last thing that I'll mention with it is, and honestly, it'll be a transition into yours. Manchester United are the biggest club in the world. They are. And they're certainly the biggest club in England. And, the other investment group that is being looked at is the Qatari investment group. And some of the like rhetoric being pushed, it has nothing to do with like people from outside of the country or like anything like that, but it almost is looked as like a bailout. Like we talk about like Newcastle being purchased by like crazy wealthy people,
Yep.
PSG, Manchester City, things of that nature. And if the biggest club in the world, the biggest club in England needs that kind of funding to get them to the top, it's just a disappointing thing to see. Like,
Of course.
it's just hard to watch. So there is the appeal of having like a local lad, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, a fan of the club forever, to be that person. But yeah, split.
It's, and I'll dive into the Qatari group here shortly. I think it's very difficult as a United fan right now because like where I like fell in love with United was like the class of '99, like favorite player being Scholes. Like United has been built off of youth, and as you see with like Rashford, and currently holds the longest, or still holds the streak that won't end anytime soon, of most games consistently with a member of the youth team in the squad. And so that's like what United is built on, and the history of the club is built on, and United as we know it. And that's sort of what like you kind of get that like feeling with Sir Jim Ratcliffe. And then on the other hand, it's like you're saying, it's like, well, we need funding. We need funding. And then that brings into sort of the complete opposite of what Sir Jim Ratcliffe is with the Qatari investment group. Um, what did you say Sir Jim Ratcliffe was worth 20 million?
20
Yeah, let's
billion.
20 billion, excuse me, but let's like 10x that almost, to where like looking at the Qatari Investment Authority, they're a sovereign wealth fund that's worth 450 billion.
Mm.
So almost polar opposite sort of type of wealth. I mean, still very, very rich, but at the same time, it's exactly the opposite of what Sir Jim Ratcliffe is. And I think what's interesting with this, Qatari Investment Authority is, if you look at it, a subsidiary of the Qatari Investment Group is, the Qatari Sports Investment Group, which currently owns PSG. And I think that's where the reservation comes a little bit with this Qatari bid, because I don't think I'd be comfortable. And again, UEFA obviously has to approve this, and sort of the rule becomes that like you can't have multi-club ownership. No individual or legal entity may have control over influence of more than one club that currently participates in UEFA. But from my understanding, this would be completely through the Qatari Investment Group and have nothing to do with Qatari sports investment, which I can't imagine that they would even try to make this happen if they thought that UEFA would sort of shut this down. And that's why, to me, I think that this is real. And from everything that I'm reading, they won't be beat. Like everything
Yeah.
that I'm reading is that the Qatari, investment authority essentially says that they will not be beat no matter what it takes to get United. It's obviously sort of led by the Emir of Qatar, who is keen to sort of cash in on this World Cup buying or like post World Cup. Wants to get a Premier League team, and it also rumors that he's been a lifelong United fan and sort of studied in England for a while. So I'm curious to get your thoughts, because this is sort of the polar opposite of Sir Jim Ratcliffe. This obviously would instantly make us one of the richest clubs in the world, give us the ability to, obviously, with FIFA Fair Play, but give us the ability to sort of buy whoever we want, rebuild the stadium, rebuild Carrington, and rebuild the club. But I think there's sort of that drawback of, do we get away from what we've always known as Manchester United? Do we get away from, I've consistently been one who's talked shit on the Manchester Cities, who's talked shit on the PSGs, who's talked shit on the Newcastles for buying their way back to the top. And I think that's where I'm
Mm.
having that moral dilemma of, what do I want United to be for the foreseeable future? We'll go straight back to the top if the Qatari investment authority does buy us, but is that necessarily how I want us to do it? That's where I think I'm a
Mhm.
little bit conflicted right now.
Yeah, it is conflicting. I think the first thing that comes to mind, even when I saw the initial reports of this, is like sports washing.
Yep.
Mind you, 2 months ago, we said goodbye to the potentially best World Cup we've ever watched. Messi had his crowning moment. It was incredible, and it was in Qatar. Same place that this investment group is from. And we all sat on this podcast talking about how much of a shame it was that the World Cup was there, and how there's so many human rights issues, and there's so many.
That's another whole component of it. Like it's the people that
Yeah.
are there and what they're doing.
So, so you look at that and it's extremely hard to root for something like that. I feel like it would be uh it just feels like I can't look at that and be like, no, 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 that's who I want to like own our club, even though I said everything that I said 2 months ago. You know what I'm saying? Or 3 months ago or
Yeah,
4 months ago. Like fuck you for for that month, but like come and spend at my club. Like that's where I feel conflicted on it. And what we don't know is there like a random third party or fourth party or fifth
there's
party
rumors of
who's
Dubai
on.
as well. Like Dubai was another
Yeah,
one that had
like
been talked about.
so it's like, is there like a best of both worlds? I don't know. My issue is like, yeah, all the human rights stuff that comes along with like the country of Qatar. And I don't know these people who are part of this investment group, and maybe they're like the cream of the crop, and maybe that's like incredible. I just don't want Manchester United to get like caught up in sports washing. That's like the furthest thing that what I want. I want to be proud to wear this jersey every day. I want to be
Of course.
proud to like do all of that. And it would be really hard for me to do that as like if we were just like you said, if that's how we got back to the top. The problem is, bro, like we have the coach we need to get back to the top. We have the mentality that we need to get back to the top. We need the investment and like we need the facilities to get us back to the top. But like that for me doesn't trump the like moral ambiguity that would come with a move like this. So for me it's really tough. And as much as I have not believed in the Glazers for the last 10 years, I believe in them even less to make a good decision
Yeah,
in
I
this
mean,
department.
it's it's a very interesting time. Like it's a very interesting, sort of set of events that are going to play out here over the next couple of weeks because I think either side that happens, I have my reservations. No matter who it is, like they're going to be their reservations. Because I don't think at this moment there's a perfect option. Like
Mm-hmm.
Sir Jim Ratcliffe was one of those that did come out and just announced that he was in, that they were going to make a bid. And this Qatari stuff has come out from Mike Keegan's reported, who's a reliable source, coming out from Fabrizio talking about all these reliable sources talking about the possibility of being owned by the Qatari Investment Authority. I think I'm kind of right down the middle. Like obviously the happy medium would be somebody kind of in between, but I think at the end of the day it'll be hard for me if this summer if we go get Jude or if we go get these guys that we need that we know is going to take us back to the top. Like I think we'll be right there with City fans and be like, I don't fucking care anymore. We have money. Let's go fucking buy everybody. Give me Jude. Give me Frankie.
Yeah.
Give me Osman up top. Like that's where I think right now we're so conflicted because it hasn't happened yet. I could also see that switch for myself flipping very quickly when all of a sudden we're competing for a title next year because we dropped so much money in the summer.
Yeah.
And so that's where it's very tough with like moral dilemma, but also like I just want us to win again. I think at the end of the
Yeah.
day, I want us to be a successful club, but I also want us to be proud to wear the jersey every day and proud of the sort of where United has come from and still keeping that like culture that has been built within United over the past, decades.
Yeah. It is tough. And I hate like sitting here being like, yeah, I'm 50-50. That like feels like such a bitch ass way to talk about it. But that's kind of how I feel. Like, I don't know. I feel like doing it the right way is more important to me than just like
Yeah.
rocket shipping us into like mega millions. I feel like doing it the right way for me. So I think I edge Sir Jim Ratcliffe. If it's between the two, I think I edge Sir Jim Ratcliffe
I
if I
think, and
have to.
I have to share the stat just because I have it up. And I think the bottom line is anybody but the Glazers. And I have
Yeah.
I have the graphic up of like Premier League owner funding over the last 10 years. And it's like Manchester City, like their owners have funded, 684 million. It looks like below that is Chelsea, Villa, Fulham, Everton, Leicester, Brighton, Arsenal, Wolves, Leeds, Liverpool, West Ham, Crystal Palace, Southampton. And then we actually get to the reverse way where the exact opposite of investor and funding, where at the very bottom of this list is the Manchester United owners having added about 100
Taken.
taken $154 million from the club. over the last
Yeah.
decade, which just sums up the state of where United currently is, but also why I think we can't necessarily be picky. And I think that the overarching goal is here that the Glazers are going to be gone and we can build off of the success that we're currently having this year.
Yeah. And speaking of that success, like I think it's a great way to transition into the rest of the season. I'm curious to get your thoughts on where we stand right now in the table, what we have ahead of us, and maybe even like your expectations coming into the season versus where we are.
Yeah. I think I've said this on the actual Mecca pod before, but if you were to like ask me my goals for Ten Hag for this season, I think I probably would have been happy with top four. Like genuinely, like didn't have too many expectations, was prepared to give Ten Hag time. I mean, obviously, like we've said it before, you and I have, text message going back two and a half, almost 3 years now, wanting Ten Hag to be the guy. Just knowing the style of football he plays, knowing the mentality he has. So going into the season, if you would have told me we finished like third or fourth and qualified for Champions League football and could make a run at it next year, run at a title next year, I'd be happy with it. I would have signed the dotted line and said, all right, perfect. Let's move on with next season. I can't even describe. Like I genuinely can't even describe the job that Ten Hag has done this year. Like nearly perfect for the situation that he's in with the current squad that we have. He's nearly perfect. So now I think at the minimum, and this is going to sound a bit crazy just because we are already in a final, we're still in 4 competitions. We're 5 points off the top of the table. I think minimum like a trophy in top 4 is kind of where I want, just seeing as that we're already in a final. That's by no means saying we don't have the potential to go on and win the FA Cup, the potential to go on and win the Europa League. I'm not going to necessarily say we have the ability to go on and win the Prem, even though if you would have asked me a year ago and said, hey, United's going to be 5 points off the top of the table halfway through the season with 3 months to play, I would have said, pinch me. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't have believed it at all. So it's very tough because I want to say trophies, but I don't think those should be the expectations for Ten Hag. Like I just don't think that obviously that's his ultimate goal. But I think with the squad we have, like I think a trophy in top 4 is an absolutely outstanding season for Ten Hag. Now, obviously, the ambition that this club has is to win Premier League titles, win every trophy we in. Am I saying we can't win the quad? No. Like that's something that like we're still in 4 competitions, but that shouldn't be the expectation, in my opinion. With the depleted squad that we have, I would be very much okay with a trophy in second place, third place.
Yeah.
Based
I think
off where
it's
we
well
currently
said.
are.
You
Yeah.
know, I, part of, 2.5, 3 years ago, like our desire for Ten Hag to come into the team was the way he plays. Ajax played such a beautiful way of playing. He was so fluid in his decision making. I can't tell you how many times we watched that Ajax team line up in a 4-3-2-1, a 4-2-3-1, a 3-5-2, just whatever the situation called for. He just seemed to make those decisions, and we've seen that at United too. The switching, we've talked at lengths about it. I don't need to say that too, but the second thing that made me so excited about the Ten Hag appointment is for once in the last like 10 years, I felt like we had a manager that I was actually going to develop players.
100%.
Every manager that we've had over the last 10 years have kind of like had their boy, if you will, like the players that kind of made their emergence under them, even like Ralph Ragnick, like whatever, like had Alanga, Alanga played semi well in
Was
his
kind of
tenure
forced
there.
into Alanga, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, for sure. But you can look under every single manager that we've had. Whereas when you look at Ten Hag, there have been 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players that have gotten significantly
Just
better this year.
resurrected from the dead.
Yeah, people that, Wan-Bissaka, we were yelling preseason, like, why can't we get a deal for him? And now I'm like, are we starting him over Delo against Barcelona? Like, that's
Yeah.
a real conversation. We've talked so much about Rashford and his development this year, but you also look at, Martinez transitioning to the Premier League. You look at Shaw, playing like the best left back in the Prem, but then also right up there as a center back. And Garnacho, like, I mean, he really is him right now. Delo has been playing out of his mind, like you mentioned earlier. I think that he's just an incredible man manager. Now, if the season ended tomorrow, and obviously like no tournaments are part of that because we haven't played a final yet, but if
Yeah.
the season ended tomorrow and at time of recording we're sitting in third, I'm stoked. Like I'm stoked that that's what happened in the first year of, Ten Hag being here, and we've enjoyed the football. Like it hasn't been like, what was it? 2 years ago, we finished second under Ole, and we are like, how the fuck did we do that? It was like in the last like 2 weeks of the season, we got second, but at no point did we look like we dominated. Now we look really good while we're playing, and I've been really enjoying that. So for me, top four is my expectation. If we lose out of top four, um, for me, it's a bottle job. For me, being
Thousand
where
percent.
we are with
Thousand
this
percent.
little left in the season, even though it's like 2 months and we have a lot of games ahead of us, it is bottling that. With the distance we have on Spurs and anyone below Spurs, we should be in top four. I also have an expectation of at least one trophy. I just think that we are in 4 competitions. Winning 2 of them, I think, is more than doable.
That would be
Um,
incredible. Literally incredible.
incredible. But like the thing is that's like weird about it is Barcelona is going to be an incredible task. We get through Barcelona, and I would put us up against anyone in the Europa League left over. And
Yeah.
then you also look at the other competitions that we're in. Obviously, we're in a final where we're going to play Newcastle, but then we have West Ham in the other tournament. I put us above West Ham every day of the week, but the other teams that are in that tournament, Tottenham's the only one that's like worth mentioning. So like I put us up against anyone. The depth is concerning, but I think with a couple months left of the season, I'm incredibly optimistic as a United fan. And I do have some pretty high expectations. I can only imagine where this team is going to be in a year. If
Yeah.
we get the proper people, in the places to back Ten Hag. Because I still don't think that we've seen the best United.
No, by no means have we seen the best United. A lot of times, like you saw at the weekend against Leeds, like we're just getting results, and I think that's part of the manager that Ten Hag is just knows how to get results and knows how to get the best out of the players that he has to work with. I think like something that I've been thinking about a little more is, and by no means am I saying that we're comfortable, but we're currently what 7 points ahead of Tottenham, who's in fifth.
Mhm.
So Ten Hag has always taken the approach, and obviously it's very smart as a manager, but like the most important game is the next game in front of you. He's been asked about, can you plan ahead? Can you plan for, can we plan for Leicester now? Can we plan for Barcelona next week? His answer is always no, because you don't know what's going to be dealt with you in the Barcelona game or your next game. There could be injuries. You got to pull somebody, something happens, there's a red card. So the one game at a time mentality is, I think, sort of how we have to approach this. But with that gap of being 7 points right now, it gives us a little bit of freedom to, like, there's been that talk of, oh, well, if we get knocked out by Barcelona, like it's not a bad thing. We can focus on the Prem. But right now we have that little bit of breathing room to where like we
Mhm.
don't have an excuse to also go for this game against Barcelona, to also try to win,
Yeah.
to also try to advance. Yes, the fixture congestion. We got Barcelona Thursday, we got Leicester Sunday, we got Barcelona Thursday, then we got a final that next Sunday. So that fixture congestion is huge. But we also have the ability tomorrow, we can't play Martinez, which means he'll be fresh for Leicester. And then
Mhm.
there could be that squad rotation again next week for Barcelona. Say Wan-Bissaka plays tomorrow, Delo can play Sunday, then either of them can sort of play. So we're at that spot right now. Yes, we have injuries, but Ten Hag has done such a great job of managing throughout this entire season that no matter who he has available, like playing Maguire at the weekend, like nobody wants to see that, but we got a 2-0 result, and Varane had 5 or 6 days off to now be fresh to play the
Yep.
next game against Barcelona. And I think
Yeah,
that's
it's a
where I have
great. Yeah.
I think that's where I have confidence in us being able to continue to win games and progress, even though we're in 4 competitions. If we can get that squad rotation sort of where we have it right now, we have a chance to win every single game we play, no matter who it is. And I think
Mhm.
that is something that we haven't been able to say as a United fan for a decade. And
It
like you
feels
said,
so good.
we don't have a Ten Hag team right now. We don't play the style of football that I think we're going to play next year or in 2 years. But the belief and the identity that he has instilled with what he has had to deal with Ronaldo, with bringing in transfers late, with the Jaden Sancho situation, with bringing in Garnacho, with bringing in young players, with the competition earlier that, Malcia brought to Shaw and getting the best out of both of them, getting the best out of Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I think the player we haven't mentioned yet who doesn't have the statistics that he had over the past couple of years is Bruno Fernandes. Like Bruno
Mhm.
is a much better all-around footballer this year. He doesn't have the goals and assists that he's had that we've seen over the past two years at United, but he's a much better all-around footballer. Defensively, his work rate's better. On the ball, he's better. He's not playing that hero ball that we've seen over the past couple of years. So the development that we're seeing of these players in such a short amount of time only has me just jacked up to get to next season, but also realizing that to sort of appreciate what we have going right now, to appreciate the moment that we're in of you and I for the first time ever genuinely look forward to the next time we play, no
Yeah.
matter who it is, and no matter how many days off we haven't had that in so fucking long.
Feels so good. It feels so good. Dobes and I are going to plan on covering a couple more, in-depth United things over the next couple of months. Obviously, with the sale of the club, we do have some finals to look forward to. We may not occupy as much time on the normal podcast, so we'll be looking to do these Mecca moments more frequently during the back half of the season. I think that there's going to be a lot of things coming for Manchester United, but thanks for listening, everyone. Hope you liked it, and feel free to give us a comment underneath. As always, follow us our socials. Thanks for listening, Dobes. Good job, buddy.
Yeah, I think the last thing I'll say is if there's any United fans that are listening to the Mecca,
Oh
shoot us a
yeah,
message. Shoot us a message. We'd love to chat. Love to know your thoughts. Ed and I are both two guys that almost all day, every day, we're talking United at some point or what's going on in the world of United. So if there's anybody that listens that loves chatting United, hit us up and we'll be more than happy to chat with you guys.
if you're interested in digging deep into the Kylian Mbappe to Manchester United conspiracy,
What does
we're
it
your guys.
mean?
What does it mean? All right, cheers, buddy. Good job.
Yeah, cheers, brother.